I'll keep these two back here in case gentlemen show up.
And I have agreed on separation. Think will work. I'm not gonna let the board be put in those positions.
I call to order the Charter Revision Commission for Friday, November 8th, 2024, 10:04 a.m. Michelle, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Root,
I'm here.
Mr. Kolianis,
Here.
Dr. Bugavalis,
Here.
Ms. Jennings,
Here.
Mr. Kuskudis, Mr. Seaman, and Mr. Terrapini.
Here.
Maybe they're trying to find parking.
Thank you very much. All right, we have two things to do today on our agenda. Talking about the Board of Commissioners' comments. So first thing I'm going to ask, did anyone not watch the video of their meeting?
I didn't watch it.
You watched it or did not? You did not
No,
watch it?
I did not watch it, and I have some questions about why sometimes.
Okay, yeah, I had asked Irene to send out the link to that video, so everybody would. I don't know if that happened. Thought it did.
They did, I don't
I mean, this was like a while back because we,
Well, I was far out of town.
okay, no, it's not a problem. Our esteemed city attorney, I'm sure, will fill us in on every lovely detail. And I did. I watched it like twice, and with highlights probably 3 and 4 times. So, Mr. Salzman, would you like to walk us through this?
Well, and let me say this, generally, I think there is, when it was reviewed by the board, they also looked at the issue of how many questions do we want to put. I think that was fundamental, because even from the last election we just had, there's a lot of referendum questions. Sometimes you don't get the people really paying attention or caring about it. So I think that was a fundamental thing. Let's make sure that we use what we need to use, and maybe some of these other things, not. So I think that's important. But on the same token, I would say the board was very comfortable with the majority of changes that you're going to make. So I thought that was good. There were some that they looked at as policy versus maybe changing the charter. But I think they fundamentally looked at everything and saw that these were reasonable things, and you'll see that from the BOC review document.
So where are we right now in terms of the questions?
So right now, the questions have generally been,
No, I mean, how many would we be
Oh,
putting
I
to the
think we have
voting
9.
public with our current
I think
status?
there's 9.
9. And I want to say we had 15 in this last election. So 9, I don't think is an unreasonable number. That's my personal opinion. Yes.
Sure.
Okay, just for historical reference and precedent, in the 83 charter revision question to the public, there were 20 questions and 17 passed.
20 questions, 17 passed in the past charter.
In
Revision.
83 revisions,
Okay,
just like
in
what we're
83.
doing, there were 20 questions put before the public and 17 passed. So my position would be, I'm open-minded to hear if they make an argument that maybe we didn't see that perspective and change it. I'm not so much open to reducing the number of questions just to reduce the number of questions.
Agreed.
And I don't want you
Chair
to,
Panning,
think that was their mindset, because it wasn't. But it
Okay.
is something that we all think about.
So I'm going to agree with Mr. Terrapini 100%. I know, don't fall over, John.
I'm not.
I did get a lot of too many words, too many questions, has to be fewer out of the video. So I'm Mr. Salzman, I'm very happy to hear your assessment of it. I do think there are one major place where we could tighten it up, but in general, we have discussed and analyzed and thought about and discussed again each one of these things. So if we still feel they are of importance, I don't think that looking at just the number it should be a driving factor for us. So that's where I'm with you on this. So how would you like to present this information, Mr. Salzman?
I figured we would go through the BOC review document, which Michelle has provided everyone and which we have on the board.
The highlights here, that represents our highlights, and then you
Yes.
had, it doesn't show here on red, but the, like, underneath B, you say maybe list. You have comments after each one of those, and those are your comments. You have not changed.
These are this is how the board came out on these issues. Like, for example, the first one, maybe list. Is it one that has to be? No. Do they have a problem with it? No. Is there too many kind of thing, right? They didn't have a problem with it, but it was just, is this a necessary one?
Okay, and have you eliminated any from our original?
We have changed nothing
Okay, all right,
from
that's
what
good.
you have proposed, other than the comments that the BOC said.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm handing it over to you. Why don't you walk us through it?
Okay, so section 3 is limitation of powers. The additional language of dredge and spoil sites. So the acquisition by the city of real property under the power of eminent domain, storm drainage improvements, and dredge and spoil sites. Again, not a problem with it. It's just a question of, is that important enough to put as a referendum question? I would assume you all will say yes.
I wasn't for it to begin with, so.
I know, that was your
So, I mean,
suggestion to
I'm-
begin, wasn't it?
I went along with the majority, but if the majority wanted to change their mind, you're not gonna hurt my feelings.
I mean,
About taking the
remember
dredge
that,
Well,
spoil
the majority voted that we wanted to see this included, so that's,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so remember, just so you know, here's how the question will kind of, or the ordinance will come out. Proposed amendment to section 3H of the city charter to increase the limitation threshold on the purchase, sale, exchange, conveyance, or leasing of real property, and to include dredge and spoil sites under the power of eminent domain by the city.
yeah,
So-
that's a good question. So that is one question.
That is one question that
All
will
right.
have these 3 sections.
Okay,
And note that the BOC was okay with H and I. So that was a non-issue.
okay.
So it's only really, do you want to put dredge and spoil sites on there? If you don't, BOC's fine with you not putting it on there. BOC's fine. They didn't have a real big, they would have just put that section under, doesn't have to. That makes sense.
Okay. Yes, question.
Yes, with the purchase of the Stamus property, is that now moot?
Has that been approved
Yes.
Yeah.
by, okay.
And that's the other thing I would point out to you. We hate to put anything in the charter that's for a specific, incident, because we talked about that early on, removing things that were no longer, relevant.
I'm gonna put it back to Mr. Terrapini. Does the purchase of the spoil site by referendum change your opinion on this at all?
well, remember, I wasn't for the city being able to do spoil purchases by eminent domain at the time.
You were
because
not, I'm sorry.
Because it seemed to me that we were setting ourselves up to having the Board of Commissioners circumvent the will of the people. So if the referendum had failed and then the Board of Commissioners circled back and said, well, we're gonna buy it anyway, then I thought that was not appropriate. But then, so it did pass, right? So we're at a position where it passed. The question was, it authorized the city to make the purchase, okay? Then it didn't demand that they make the purchase, it authorized them to make the purchase. In the past, I will tell you that there's precedent that the referendums have passed and the Board of Commissioners did not purchase the property that was approved in referendum. I'm not saying that's happening now. So what I'm saying is, in deals, it's not a deal until the deal is done.
Right.
But now we're back to square one in a mental exercise, we're at square one. So do you want to leave it in there in case something foobarbs with this and that they still could go somewhere along the river or somewhere and find an alternative site, you know, for, so
I mean, if we're talking, the only thing, if we're talking about expectations, you know, based on what we just went through, I don't know if there's, I mean, there's some expenses obviously that the city has that were not expected. So if you're worried about them maybe purchasing something or doing that in the near future, I would have you take in consideration that we're spending money on fixing what the storms have caused. It's going to affect the city for quite some time. So it's not like they're going out, you know. This one was already, the Stamus property was already in effect. There was nothing that could be done to change that going out. But it's just a consideration.
Well, from my perspective, if you look at the total paragraph that we started with, it's not represented here. It was acquisition of the city real property under the power of eminent domain exclusively for water and sewer utility easements, public rights-of-way, public parking, dredge and spoil sites, and storm drainage improvements. So there were all, I'm sorry, we put the dredge and spoil sites in,
Right.
but there were a whole list of things that were identified in there
that they could do
Right,
that they
previously.
can do, and we were adding to that.
right. I mean, again, this is not a major,
But I guess
this
what
is not a
Carrie-
major one way or the other.
Yeah, but I think what Carrie's trying to say, and not put words in your mouth, Carrie, is what we're seeing in front of us isn't reflective of what the charter says today.
Right.
So it's
And
hard
so
to-
it looks
hard
like
to-
it's,
hard to track it.
yeah, it looks like, well, we can do something for storm and drainage improvements and dredge and spoil sites, but all this other stuff is also missing. So, you know, we identify specifically what they can do with eminent domain.
in charter.
And that's not reflected in this question.
Well, the changes that you have suggested are reflected in the question. The final question hasn't been drafted, but we did the general.
Well, then why is storm drainage improvements there?
I will tell you in a second.
Does it not say acquisition by the city of real property under a power of eminent domain to include dredge and spoil sites? Sorry, I got my engineer hat on today
No,
and 2 cups of
that's
coffee in my
Oh,
stomach.
no.
Whoa.
how I read it.
You didn't add it. You
What?
didn't tell us
That's how I
about
read
that.
it. I read it like you read it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you.
So our choices right now are to accept what we gave them to look at or to not.
Right, your choice is to continue on with the language that what we're doing today is you're deciding whether you're going to make any changes. Otherwise, we will continue with the language that you voted on. So the question really becomes, you now have the comments today of the BOC. Do you want to continue with the language you have, or do you want to make any changes? That's what we're here on
Right.
today.
How many did we send to them, Carrie? How many questions did we
There's,
potentially send?
Oh, you just said,
I thought I said 9, but
Nine.
I could be, I want to make sure I'm right.
Is that right, Michelle?
I thought they were talking a lot more. I thought they
No,
were
there's-
bandering around like 18,
No, there's 14.
14. Yeah. So, all right.
So this, I'm sorry, so this section reads, so this section reads, the acquisition by the city of real property under the power of eminent domain exclusively for water and sewer utility easements, public rights-of-way, public parking, and storm drainage improvements. And we've added, instead of stopping at storm drain improvements, and dredge and spoil sites. The question, so that you know, you're looking at a truncated version under the BOC review. The
Right.
question itself will have all that language in there, and
It will have all of this?
all of that, what I just read to you.
Okay, all right,
And then
that's
we'll
fine.
have the additional language of dredge and spoil sites.
All right, so right now, what I would like to do on this one, since there was a question on it, let's get a motion on the table to either accept or not. And then we'll continue discussion and then,
Are you, because, I hate to interrupt, but because the BOC is okay with H and I, do you just want to do a motion on the whole section? The whole, section 3?
in other words,
Because the BOC
Okay,
is, in
sure.
is agreement with you.
well, it says question 1 and question 2 under section 3.
Yeah, but,
I is on question 2, H is on question 1.
yeah, see that? And the red, Andy?
Yeah. Well, it's not really 2 questions.
Oh, all right, it's not really.
Because the way it's under section 2, so the ordinance says proposed amendment of 3H, limitation of power. We have it as one section under the
But-
ordinance.
Okay.
The problem,
But if you want to do it separately, I have no problem with that.
what, would there, how many questions would there be on the referendum on that, B, H, and I? How many
Should
questions?
only be one. Unless,
Okay.
I have an issue with that.
Sure, because we have a
Because
word
somebody
limit.
may not want to give them the eminent domain to do the
that's
dredge
true,
and
too.
soil.
But they
spoil,
wanna do
but
the
they
others.
say, okay, we'll give you the 500. It needs
Right.
to be separate questions. And then,
we're checking with Irene on this.
And then the
because-
real property too
Because
is very,
there is
that
a
you
word
can't
limit,
swap.
there is a word limit when we draft the actual question, so we want to make sure we're right in the
Okay.
information we're giving you.
And Mr. Terrapini's point is very well taken. These are three very separate issues.
Right.
And if one part gets voted down by the community, the other two that really should be
Well, then we
accepted.
could do them as separate. I don't think that's a problem.
I think everything is separate.
Well, and it is true that we probably should, as we're talking, we probably should do them as separate because it would affect all 3, and they are separate. So why don't we, for your purposes, why don't we vote on them individually? So instead of BOC, okay with question 1, I would go up to B and say, that's question 1.
Oh, okay,
Well,
so,
we could vote on them. I mean,
I mean, you can vote on them however you want. We're going to draft the question.
well, it's true. Okay, so Mr. Terrapini, you're suggesting,
I'd say that, I would move, we leave B in, leave the dredge and spoil sites in, and leave H and I, but they're separate questions. But that, just for the motion of moving this thing along, instead of 3 different motions, there's
Yeah.
a motion that B stays, H stays, I stays.
Okay, is that your motion? 'Cause I'll
BH
second
nine.
it.
That's a motion.
and
Okay.
do you want to also add that
That-
they
And
be
it's to be
separate
3 separate
questions?
questions.
Well, you can't control that. We have to do that because there's some, I mean, we'll probably do that anyway, is what I'm saying to you. But it's really, you could say it, but we're still stuck based on word limitation and all those things, how we draft it.
That sounds like a double negative.
Hey,
Didn't it? You guys say whatever you want and we'll just do
it's
it.
starting to sound like kind of an elitist thing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
Only we know what's right.
oh, that's right. I mean,
A 15-word limit in the title and 75 in the body,
Okay.
so they'll probably be individual
Yeah.
questions.
and just
the-
so you
the-
know, we don't like hearing no.
Did I say no?
like
That was a
children.
mistake.
Yes, that was a
So the
mistake.
balance of the
Thank you very
motion
much.
was that it'd be 3 separate questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's no reason why we can't make a motion if they have to ignore it because
No,
of
it
the
actually
limitation.
sounds like you are correct on how we will do it, based on the idea that these are separate issues.
Oh, I like that. We are correct.
You are
All right.
correct.
Let's-
I was
Let's continue.
wrong.
All right, we have a motion on the table
second.
to accept B, H, and I, SAR, and as separate questions. So we have it seconded. Do we have any further discussion on this? No further discussion?
Well,
Well, go ahead.
I'll just say that I think the dredge and spoil sites clause is right in keeping with the intent
Of
and
the
the kinds
paragraph.
of things, that are already mentioned, so it makes perfect sense to me to
Yes,
keep it in.
yes. I
Especially
think-
considering what Mr. Salzman said in terms of some of the city's limitations due to recent events.
I agree. All right. Are you ready to call the vote? May we call vote on that?
Dr. Cavallis,
Yes.
Ms. Jennings,
Yes,
Mayor Manning,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colinas,
Yes.
Chair Rubin.
Yes.
Okay, if we move to the next one, which is Section 8, Board of Commissioners, composition, duties, responsibilities, and powers. So D was looked at, as you know, the language, current language is to adopt a city budget as prescribed by law, period. You have added in conjunction with reviewing the charter for funding requirements. The BOC said that's should be policy versus in the charter because that's how they should be doing this.
But they've never done it. And that's why we brought it. And
That's why we wanted
brought
it
up,
in there.
because you have these charter things in the charter where funding is required, and the budget never reflected the requirements of the charter. So that's why that was put in.
Okay, but let's talk about that first, just a second. Was that more along the idea of the sidewalk issue, or was that additional issues?
It
that-
was,
Oh, it's
had to do
additional.
with some of those other plans, the comprehensive plan, the strategic plans, the sustainability plans. It had to do with a broad range of funding requirements that haven't taken place. And since the BOC changes all the time, unless you have it in there, they don't really know that.
I think it was pretty clear to all of us that there are a number of issues in the charter that are not being addressed. And that's why what we discussed, and that's why we put this in there. They have to do it if it's in here. How much clearer can we do? Doesn't matter when they're elected or how long they're in there or anything. That's the Bible for them to run the city.
That is
Right, and
correct.
until it is policy, I mean, once it's policy, once it's set, once we see it in action, okay, well, then
Take
take
it
it back out.
Yes,
But we're not
absolutely.
seeing an action this way.
Yeah, and I think I know what happened on that last thing about the one question under section 3, that it's a section, and now they're doing the same thing on section 8. Those were all separate questions. You can't take a section and say we're going to change the section. You got to,
Oh, no, you're right. You are right. That was my mistake.
okay, no problem.
I was trying to think of, I was actually trying to think of a way to reduce the number of questions.
Right. But that's your argument with the Board of Commissioners.
Well, no, that's just my, in
Your
general,
personal?
trying to make sure that we do it in a way that it's, that we have everyone looking at the issues to make sure that they're addressing what you're proposing, right?
Right.
I think the most important thing here, and I don't want to lose my perspective on it, is that everything we're getting back says
Should be policy.
it's policy. It apparently can't be because it's not being addressed that way. So if the public reads it or understands it, I think we're going to see every bit of these that we've talked so far about passed.
Right.
Well, let's move to the next one.
Well, why don't we do this?
And
Why
I
don't we
have a
just-
suggestion on the next one too.
are-
Go
are
ahead,
we,
John.
You want to do it separate?
So when you say the next one, are you talking about the next section or the?
No, no, I'm
No,
talking about
I, J,
Oh, okay.
I and J.
K, and L.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean, I
so
think
now
we
you wanna
should
go to-
review
you
each
wanna go
one
to
of
I.
these and then have you vote either,
So when I listened to the Board of Commissioner addressing this, they were, this is too many words, this is too long, this is too, et cetera. What I'm just going to say, my understanding from what we wanted to see that the city manages the strategic plan, the comprehensive plan, and the sustainability plan in conjunction with each other, in line with each other, and they're updated periodically. I mean, that's what we wanted. And then we had a lot of words change because the timing and the alignment, et cetera. I don't see why we can't delete I, J, and L, and then according to Mr. Salzman's suggestion, just keep K and then list the 3 plans that have to be coordinated.
Well, and they are going, and just so you know, they are in the process of being brought forth to the board and as is required and coordinating. And those are more mandates that are state required anyway. So if your point is, if the argument is that the city's not doing this, well, the city is required to do it. So whether you put it in the charter or you don't have it in the charter, it's still required. So the state it has a mandate to do this, so
Of
you
some
have to
things.
do it.
Some
Yeah,
things.
in other words, the,
Well, no, the ones
the
we're talking about
periodicity.
next.
Yeah.
Well, I think the state only has a requirement on the comprehensive
Well, the
plan.
comprehensive plan, you're right. The comprehensive, see, I said you're right. The comprehensive plan has a lot of, fingers that come out of that when you're doing the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of other issues that are required as a result of the comprehensive plan. But I would tell you these next sections are things that are required for the city to do. Now, if your point is, again, the city's not doing them, well, that's more of the city needs to do it, right?
Right, and
As
so,
opposed to whether it's in the charter or not in the charter, it's still a requirement.
yeah, I, in listening to that discussion, and I went back to what really needs to be in the charter, we don't need to put anything more than they are updated every 5 years. And what those 3 plans are and how they're coordinated.
Like I gotta
That's all
tell
we really
you,
need to do.
however you are gonna respond to what I'm gonna say, I don't think the additional languages is, I've ever seen that kind of language in a charter.
Right, well, that's what I'm
This
saying
is this is a position, right? This is a position statement.
Right, no, and I agree. That's why I'm gonna go back with my recommendation that we eliminate I, J, and L. And go back to K,
Wait, you were gonna eliminate L?
let me finish. And it's, K is
Oh, I
our
see. Okay.
overarching
Yeah, yeah,
paragraph.
yeah,
It says,
yeah.
review,
Yeah.
update, retire, abandon, or deem completed all city master and action plans every 5 years, beginning October 1st, 2024. And then we list those 3 plans, the strategic plan, the comprehensive plan, and the sustainability.
Right, that accomplishes what you're asking for.
Period.
Right.
And so it's short, concise, complete.
Exactly.
We don't need all this other stuff.
To me, that makes a lot of sense,
Yeah, just
because I
a-
think this
just a thought.
additional is language that you wouldn't necessarily put in a charter.
I'll move the chairman's recommendation.
I'm sorry?
There was a move,
I move the chairman's recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
you're winning a lot today.
I have been thinking a lot about this, Mr. Salzman. Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, we understand what we're doing with that?
Yep.
Okay,
Just so, as part of your statement, we are still striking the language in I.
we're striking the all of I,
Right,
all of J,
right.
all of L. We're keeping K, and we list the 3 plans.
But what I'm trying to clarify under I is that you're striking your addition, but we're still striking I in its entirety.
Yes.
Okay, I just
What
want to be
about
clear.
D?
What's
D?
that?
What about D?
That's separate.
Yeah, I think
We're
you need
keeping
to,
that
I
one.
think you were keeping D, right?
Yeah, we still need to vote on that part, but
I move we keep D.
but
But we haven't
anyway.
voted on the other one yet. anyway.
Well, we can amend the motion, if it's okay, to say we're keeping D, we're adding the language that the chair has said, and we're striking those other sections. That could be all part of one motion.
Accepted.
Do you accept the motion change? Do you accept the second?
Yes.
All right. We're all in agreement? Michelle, would you call the vote, please?
Dr. Cavallis?
Yes.
Ms. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Chair Fulmer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to section 11, and at this point, I would ask John to leave because this is his section.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say one thing, Mr. Salzman. Your comment here on K, maybe list, is what got me thinking in that direction. So good on you.
Thank you, I
wanted to
needed
say that.
something. 'cause
That's
I've
right.
had
Well,
to-
I'm giving you that carrot right now. Well, good on you. All right, 11, should we call a break for one of us?
Just so John could leave.
No, I'm
I
just,
think Irene spoke a lot at, regarding this issue, that we really are mandated by state statute on how we do this.
That's not true.
I know John was going to say that.
I just don't believe it. It's the hill to die on.
This is John, I know this is his.
Okay, here, let me just say that. Can I have the floor, Madam Chair?
yes, please.
Okay, Tina, I'm not picking on you. Can you tell me when qualifying opens and ends this year?
No,
Joan?
No,
Carrie?
Well, I'm sorry. The
You-
question is,
Can you
can
tell
I?
me when qualifying opens and ends this year?
Oh, it's like, ending is like, for the March one is like coming up in a week or two, something like that.
Can you tell me the dates?
Exactly?
Yeah.
No, it's not in my calendar
Right,
and it's
so-
not on my hand. So
Right.
no, I can't tell you.
Here's- So you all have.
But I
just-
also don't have an interest in running.
But you all just, as involved citizens, you just all made my case. You guys are involved more than most of the general public, and you can't tell me. It happens to be, it ends the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I mean,
No,
it's a week,
lot of-
it's a
Darn,
week.
I was gonna say that too.
So my point is, you have a 1 week qualifying period.
Mm-hmm.
It's the week before Thanksgiving. What do you think people are thinking about? Oh, should I run? or-
Turkey, family coming in, et cetera. Yeah.
I say we leave it. I said from the very beginning, my two things were to protect the citizens and encourage more participation in government.
So-
I allege that this encourages participation in government by making people more aware of what's going on in the community. And as far as mailing things and difficulty on the clerk's office, there are services that you just hand them the thing and say, send this to everybody in Tarpon Springs, to every household in Tarpon Springs. And they send it, and I think Jack Latvala's firm used to do that, or maybe still does, but, so there's no real stress to do this. It's a insignificant amount of money to do it, when you do bulk mailings.
Okay,
So,
so I think there's two parts here, right?
Right.
You wanted the mailings to go out so people would be aware, right? And I think that's important. The second part is you want to have the qualifying period expanded so it's not all jammed around Thanksgiving.
well, not
And-
all,
or-
I don't care
or
what time of
whatever.
year it is. I think a 1 week qualifying time is too short.
Sure, that's right. So I think one of the things that they were talking about is that the statement as it's put in is very confusing. The qualified period, 30 days prior to the qualifying period.
Well, if it's confusing, it could be rewritten so it's not confusing. But the concept
Right.
of having a notice to the general public.
Right,
Is-
and I guess,
30 days prior to the beginning of the qualifying period of 30 days. If you want to make it less confusing, make the qualifying period 45 days.
right, no, but, okay, so let's break this down.
Oh, I think
One
it's
is, I
the
think they
words
should-
qualifying time and qualifying period. I think that's the confusing part.
Right,
of it.
it is, and even
make
the
it two
commissioners
separate
got a little hung
questions.
up on that.
Yeah, we could-
I am all for notification. I think that's important. But I'm also thinking these are actually two very distinct things to be decided.
So you
So
want to
want
break
two
it down to
you
two
want
questions?
I think it should be two questions.
I'm for that.
We can do that.
And I think that it should, if there is a way to rewrite qualifying time and qualifying period so it's more qualified, it
So,
would help the population
so-
understand what we're talking about.
Can I ask
Yes.
why the BOC asked to remove this? What were their arguments?
I believe that the argument was, one, that we follow what the requirements are and that it becomes a little more burdensome on the clerk's office, and you could correct me if I'm wrong on that. The second thing is, I know I have to put this on the record. I know John disagrees with me and he might hit me,
I don't-
but I have never seen anyone who has interest in running for office not get involved to see when the issues are. I mean, I've never seen it.
I have.
And so in all the years I've done this, it's always been, people start showing an interest at least 12 months before an election occurs to see, they start coming to meetings, they start, getting involved, they start saying things. And then at public meetings, we're always talking about, city clerk tells you what's coming up, and we have that information. So this is a pretty involved city from public, watching the meetings and doing those things. So that's the only, statement I would make. I understand John's position and y'all's position on this, but I've just never seen this as being a major issue.
It's a terrible issue in Tarpon Springs.
Well, I have a personal dog in this fight that I will put forward, and that is that I am in an HOA. And so I don't see a water bill. And a lot of city information goes out in water bills.
That's
And
true.
I
Yeah, same here.
don't see any of it.
Yeah, we discussed that when we brought this up.
That's
that-
right,
that
and
the
that's
direct
one of
mail
the
should be to
reasons
each
why-
household.
Why that was really important and put in here shall be sent to all city registered voters. Very specifically
Well,
called
those are,
out that
right,
way.
those are two different questions, okay? So again, like you said, there are two different issues here. One is the
Right.
notification and one is the expansion of the qualifying
Correct.
time period.
Yeah, the notification would be where the mail goes.
And I think that's completely different, and they should be two different questions, because you are trying to, you have two different, issues here. Should we expand qualifying time? Should we give notification? Those are separate.
I'm for leaving it in with, but bifurcating the two questions. And one says that you're notified, each registered voter is notified 30 days prior to by direct mail. And, they use bulk mail, that's fine. Okay, and the second question is that the qualifying time should be expanded to 30 days.
That would be a good second question.
Yeah, second
Yes.
question.
Um,
That's a motion.
That is a motion. Is it seconded?
Seconded. I'd like to also add the sentence that it should be posted on the city's social media site and announced in a press release.
Don't we do that?
And that
Yes,
speaks
we
to
do
just
that in-
additional.
That's already
That's
done.
done
That,
automatic.
that's already
Okay.
Matter
done.
of fact, Irene just sent the ad for this qualifying period.
Great, okay.
Yeah, so that's already done. You don't have to worry about that.
Do we
Okay.
need to keep that language in there then?
Guess
I
not.
don't think we need it in there. It's redundant. We do it anyway. That last sentence.
I could see taking that last sentence that's highlighted out.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
The information shall
It
also
is
be
already
posted
done,
on the
and they
city's
are
social
doing
media
it. We've
site
seen that
and
they do
announced
that.
in a press release. That is done automatically.
Okay.
So is it okay to remove, is that part of the motion?
Well, let's talk about
Not
that.
yet.
What constitutes a press release?
It just went out in the newspaper,
It's
right?
in the newspaper.
Newspaper.
General circulation.
But is it a classified ad, Michelle, or is it
No,
a?
it's a
No, it's a
legal ad.
it's a-
Legal ad,
Legal ad?
and, those
Yes.
Wednesdays and Sundays, legal ads.
Okay.
They've always have been. We haven't changed that.
Yeah, I think what we wanted to see was the mailing
Right.
to the registered voters. And I think we need to keep that in. But I think that that last sentence that reads, information shall also be posted on the city's social media site and announced in a press release. They're already doing it. That is process. It's not something we need to put in the charter to force it to happen, because that's already happened. So I'm okay with losing those words. Yeah, and Mr. Salzman, are you going to be doing a work hard to show how effectively we reduce the number of words, since I do know
I
that one
will
of
do
our
that.
esteemed commissioners was very concerned with that.
So, okay,
We'll
just
take
so
care of
that we give you the insight from the city clerk. The board felt that this section was, the reason why they wanted it removed is they felt it was not broke, so why fix it? The first-class mailer is expensive.
Not-
That was the other issue.
We recognize it, but they are not reaching all the city
In the
voters.
Well,
grand
and
scheme
let
of
me, let me
things,
also,
expensive.
let me also say that as someone who's on auto pay for city bills, I never see any of that stuff either.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's a growing percentage, of city
So let me
residents.
speak to the last sentence at least, because this justifies what you were just talking about. Irene said, we run an ad on Sunday for the March election, and it has been posted on the website for months already. So that's being done. So that one you should feel comfortable removing.
Okay. Yeah, I am comfortable with it if everyone else is.
Yeah.
All right.
So that, all right, so that's part of the motion, the removal of the last sentence and then bifurcate the first two.
Right.
Right, two questions. Can you please make that first question so it's not confusing to the voters?
We will, well, this is your language. I don't think we could change. I mean, it has to be what you vote on.
Well, I understand, but.
If it's two questions, it takes out
Actually,
the
this isn't our
confusion.
language. This is what you wrote from our discussions.
Well, you
I'm going
voted
to
on it.
point that out.
Joan, if it's two questions, it takes out the confusion, right?
Right, yes.
I
well,
think it does.
Two questions, but I would rather say, I would rather have it,
I got to tell you, I think it's cleaner by doing it the two. I think
Right.
it makes, I think it's clean to say the qualifying time for the office of city commissioner shall be 30 days prior to the qualifying period.
Okay.
So really,
That's
time
one.
and period is not as confusing if we just limited it to the one question. I think when it becomes a bigger question, then it seems a little more confusing.
okay. All right, so the motion.
Wait a second,
John,
Carrie,
do you want to
after-
restate?
What's,
After I read it again, I can see why it's confusing. The qualifying time for the office of city commissioner shall be 30 days prior to the
qualifying period?
period.
I think if
That's
you,
that's not what we said. We said that we would notice the public 30 days prior to the qualifying period, not the qualifying time. It shouldn't say qualifying time. It should say notice for the qualifying time.
notice of the qualifying time?
Notice shall be given to the, I
So
don't know, it's
are you
not
saying
reading
it
right.
should say, notice of the qualifying time for the office of city commissioner shall be 30 days prior to the qualifying period?
Yeah, that was changing it from 7 days to 30 days. That was the first change. And then the second one was, when does the notice go out? It may be, I think it should be 30 days prior to the qualifying time as opposed to the qualifying period. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think you need to put the mailing, it should be the first question, because that's what happens first. You get the mail first, tells you, and then it's followed by the qualifying period of 30 days.
But I think,
See,
I
the qualifying
think in the,
period is something that's the problem that we discussed. The qualifying period is set by state statute.
Number of days you have to work backwards from your election date
right.
to
Well,
establish
so-
the qualifying period.
So that's fine, work backwards, but just extend the time.
So,
But it's
okay,
not
so
reading right, Andy. It's,
let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about the first sentence. Do you want to change that, to say, notice of the qualifying
No.
time?
I think that where it says the second sentence, a notice by first-class mail shall be sent to all city registered voters 30 days prior to the qualifying period, identifying all commission. That's right.
Okay, so
that
the
should be
second
first-
question is
That
good.
should be the first question,
Okay.
okay? And then we're going to take out the information shall also be
Right.
posted on, okay. The second question would be qualifying time shall be extended from 7 days to 30 days.
Well, that's in the discussion. What the period should be is what is in here. So it's going to be, the 7-day thing will be gone.
Okay, so, I think what we're on the same page is that we're gonna give people 30 days to qualify.
I'm just,
Some years there's 3 commission seats, right?
right.
And now all of a sudden people they're gonna they either don't like the way the town's going or something motivates like 3 candidates for 3 seats. Now you have 9 people coming in and they're all gonna qualify in 1 week. I don't buy that.
A lot of them pre-qualify, John. You know.
Listen, I was around when this was changed and the amount of candidates running for city office dramatically dropped to where how many times in the last few elections has there been no people just walking in, nobody running against them? I don't think that's healthy. That, it's an you get an incestuous board.
I think we're all in favor of
I know.
expanding to the 30 days. The question is we're
how to
asking
word
the
it.
attorney to make that qualifying time
This is a real
question,
hard section for
can
me
you put it
to write, to be
after
honest.
Come on,
the
you're a smart
notice.
guy.
It's not that, it's that I need to make sure that Irene is comfortable with how the language reads. But I don't have a problem switching the two sentences. I think that makes sense.
All right. And the second thing, I just want to make sure, John, that, okay, so the qualifying period right now is 7 days, correct?
Right.
Right. And we're asking for that to be expanded to 30 days.
Right.
Well, you know what? Okay, yeah, okay. So we do the first question is a notice by first-class mail, fine. We get rid of the last sentence. Okay. Qualifying period is set by code and is currently 8 days. Okay. So you want 30 days prior to the 8 days?
Can we put in there, it shall be an additional 22 days prior
no,
to the
let's not
qualifying, so it's a full 30 days?
No, let's don't confuse it. Let's just leave the second, what's going to now be the
Okay,
first
well-
sentence as it reads.
Right.
And just simply say qualifying period shall be 30 days.
So in other words, as soon as the first class mailing gets sent out, that starts the clock on the qualifying period.
No,
No,
that's the notification period.
right. The qualifying, what we're saying is we're expanding the qualifying time
But it says
For 30
qualifying
days.
period
Period,
here,
yeah.
not
Prior to
qual-
the,
to the qualifying period.
prior to the qualifying, yeah.
Okay, so in the,
No, the second sentence reads, I
That's
mean, the
fine.
first sentence reads fine after the second sentence.
I think it's still
No.
confusing to use
No, wait.
qualifying time and qualifying period, since time and period.
Change
are-
one
are
to
virtually-
notification period.
Yes, are virtually
how about
synonymous.
the time to qualify
Notification.
for the office of city commissioner?
Right, much
Or
clearer.
how about applicant shall, 30 days prior, just really change it. But yes. It just needs
The
some different
qualifying
language.
time for this office of city commissioner shall be 30 days and not prior to the qualifying period. It should be 30 days, period. That prior to the qualifying period is what's confusing
Right,
everybody.
exactly.
So you just
The qualifying
one-
time for the office of city commissioner shall be 30 days,
period.
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 Okay.
Okay, is that going to be a problem for anyone?
No.
I'm waiting to find out.
Okay.
So it's 30 days prior to the qualifying period.
And then the,
So we're defining
Qualifying
that
for
as the
office should be
qualifying
30
time.
days and notice shall be given 30 days prior to that time.
correct.
Yes.
But the first sentence,
That's how
the
we
way
will
is we're
do
gonna
it.
flip
That's-
the sentences, right?
Okay, we're good, yes.
Okay.
I like
And I
that.
do think that makes it easier.
Yes.
This was a section we all struggled with because of
Mm-hmm.
trying to get the language to coincide with the language that is currently exists in the state statute.
Okay, so you have a good handle on what that new
ab-
language is?
Solid.
Would you read it for Mr. Terrapini so he
we're
can
good.
modify his
We're good.
motion?
Oh,
Yeah.
You have
so
a
we're
motion
go-
on the
So
table.
we're doing three things when we do this. We're changing the second sentence to be the first question.
Mm-hmm.
A notice by first-class mail shall be sent to all city registered voters 30 days prior to the qualifying period, identifying all commission seats open for election and indicating who currently holds the seat and their eligibility for reelection. The next sentence is stricken. The second question will be the qualifying time for the office of city commissioner shall be 30 days.
So that's
Period.
B. That'll be B.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
You second, okay. Any further discussion?
Yes,
No.
we are now changing something that the board said remove.
Yes.
Now, were you going back to them and telling them that? So it's tough luck for them. Why are we in here then?
Here's why. You're hearing the comments that the BOC said to consider in your suggestions, number one. Number two, the BOC has the right to come up with their own questions that could be contrary to yours.
I agree 100%.
So, you are considering the BOC's comments and deciding whether or not you want to adopt what you already have, adopted some of them. So that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I knew that part of it.
That was a friendly
we're
question.
here.
Okay, so that's a process question. If you have further process questions, are you in line with what we were doing? or
Yes,
the-
I'm
okay.
very much in line.
All right, so we have a motion on it. We have it seconded. Let's go ahead and call the vote on that.
Buckalz?
Yes.
Ms. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Chair Colanetis?
Yes.
Chair White?
Yes.
Okay, we are at section 12, zoning powers. You have stricken for special exceptions. So the sentence reads, provided, however, that, well, the Board of Commissioners shall have all powers concerning land use as may be prescribed by general law. Provided, however, that the Board of Commissioners shall appoint a Board of Adjustment to be comprised of 5 members and 2 alternates who shall vote in the absence of the regular member to hear and decide appeals solely from administrative staff decisions. You're striking 4 special exceptions and for variances to zoning and land use regulations of the city. It was recommended that this was not needed so that,
Why did we do that, Andy? Refresh my memory.
I think it was brought up that special exceptions are not addressed by the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, my note here,
Appeals of the Board of Adjustment does
Right.
not hear that. So you were trying to clarify that.
Renee came and spoke to us
Right.
about
I guess the
that.
argument is, since they don't hear them anyway,
Take
what
it
does it
out.
matter if you leave the language in or not?
Well, this could be an easy gimme to the Board of Commissioners, since they're not doing it anyway, and we'll
Right.
hit it on the next charter review.
And that's why
You
it's,
want to do a gimme? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just wondering if we might need a gimme for them, so that
Oh,
they,
give it.
I mean, so it's not needed, again, this goes to the, do you want to have this question, is it necessary to have this as a question? That's really what we're talking about.
Okay. So is it possible to make a motion?
yes, please do.
I make a motion that we accept the Board of Commissioners' suggestion not to include this and to possibly have them listed.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call a vote, please, Michelle?
Dr. Buckalz?
Yes.
Ms. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Chair Colanetis?
Yes.
Chair White?
Yes.
Section 13, interference with administration. The Board of Commission is okay with your striking that section.
I don't think we need to vote on it then, do
No,
we?
you do not.
Okay.
Section 14, where you added city attorney to review before being provided to the Board of Commissioners. This has already been added as a policy since the last issue occurred, so that has been an adopted policy. That's why they're recommending it not be in there.
Jimmy, that's your court.
Oh, that's not the right page. I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, did you have a question
No,
or
some
comment?
people are more versed in different parts of the charter and operations, and I want to hear what Jimmy says about it.
On the internal auditor?
I mean, it was a pretty good dust-up, as I remember.
You guys gonna get me on an internal auditor, which upsets me because who does the internal auditor report to?
Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners.
Right.
Who manages the board listen, what happened in the past it's pretty disgusting to me that that was all wrong. And nobody on the Board of Commissioners stopped it.
Well, it was being promoted by a
It was
member
being
of the Board of
promoted by
Commissioners.
them, yes, and that's my city attorney is the only one who can say this should not go to the board. It has to go through the policy first.
But it is a policy now. They've adopted that as a
But
policy.
does their policy say that
here's the thing.
it
If-
goes to you?
That's their policy.
We,
now,
we
yes.
have in there, report all findings and non-compliance issues to the city manager. You could say, well, there's a policy on that too, so that should be eliminated as well. Right?
If-
I think what we saw was such
No, it
an
was bad.
egregious
It was bad.
Yeah.
situation that having it in the charter, at least for the next 5 years, I think is critical to make sure that that process is followed.
It has to be followed.
I would totally agree. I feel strongly,
It was just egregious.
yeah, it should be
I
in
think the
there.
language of adding you or your, whoever's sitting in your chair is important. It would have probably eliminated some of that stuff. Maybe.
I mean,
It was bad.
Understood. So you're going to leave that in, so you don't have to take any action.
What do you think, Jimmy?
Yes, I think it has to be left in.
Okay.
If this, the only one who can stop it is the city attorney by
Right.
advising the Board of Commissioners, you should not be doing this in the public. This is not the way it works.
I mean,
Okay,
if I was going to remove something, I'd remove the city manager.
Sorry, that struck me as.
You gonna make a motion for that? No.
You don't need a motion.
By the way, city manager, I'm really glad you're here and I like you.
So we're good with that section. The next one, section 16, you added under G, prioritizing future capital improvement programs. That's already a policy of the BOC.
This was
Well, wait
one
a
that
second.
Mark,
That may be a policy, but let me just give you an instance. When this referendum came up about buying property,
Yes.
there was no prioritization of where $5.5 million could be spent. It was just, let's do this. And now we're hearing from commissioners and the city manager that, do we really even have the $5.5 million to spend? So they didn't prioritize, do the sponge stocks need to be fixed first, the spring bayou, the whatever. So, I mean, they're not doing it.
this would-
They say they already a policy, but they're not doing it.
Well, and remember where we are. So we're under city manager, and we say, keep the Board of Commissioners fully advised as to the financial conditions and future needs of the city. So that's inclusive in that. I mean, that's part of what the responsibility is. Prioritizing future capital improvement programs doesn't change the responsibility as to as to what you were saying, which is the financial condition and future needs of the city.
Well, I'm with John on this one. I think it should be left in.
I look at this as the most important thing is our future capital improvements. And I don't see that happening. I see us juggling money around in the budget to make things happen that now have to happen. It's imperative that capital improvements are paid for up front, not take money out of other
But that's not what this says.
prioritizing future. Well, you want to say
I mean,
finance?
well, let me just say this to you. How does that change what happened? This language wouldn't change what referendum question was proposed. This doesn't stop that from occurring.
How would it change what's happened? It would change the fact that you're not taking money from another budget to meet a capital improvement.
And-
If the city manager doesn't know what capital improvements are needed in this town, Why the hell is he a city manager here?
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but again, this is the city manager shall keep the Board of Commissioners fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city. So
But and then the
how
next
does that
sentence says
change if the commission says, we want to purchase a piece of property? It doesn't change what the city manager's responsibilities are. He's still doing his responsibilities. Can't control what the commission does.
Well, Andy, here's the deal. It says, as to the financial condition and future needs of the city.
Right.
Okay, so here's this basket of the future needs of the city, right?
Right.
The basket. Which one's number one?
But that's not his call.
That is his call.
That's-
The
no.
second sentence, the second part of the sentence, prioritizing future capital improvement programs. So you're taking the basket, and you're taking them all out, and you're listing them.
So
So that the Board of Commissioners and the city manager and the citizens all know we need this, 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 and this. And this is the priority of how we see it.
And the city manager, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean, so the city manager says we need a new fire truck, number one. Number two, we need to fix the sewer system. Number three, we need to do whatever. And the Board of Commissioners says, thank you, we're gonna buy some property. My point is, he has the obligation to tell them these things anyway. It doesn't change what they're going to do.
I agree that the city commission can override the city manager, even if he gives them the proper recommendation. He can override them, but what this does, at least they have in front of them, he could say, here's the priorities that we've adopted. Now, if you want to take the one that's down here, or the one that's not even on the list, and it's over here in left field, right field, and do it, that's fine, but here's your priorities.
But how does that change the language that says, keep the Board of Commissioners fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city?
I just went over that. You got the basket of future needs,
Right.
but it's not prioritized. It's just a basket.
Right, and I think that we have also seen that that basket's not been populated. We've been very, the city's good at addressing what our current needs are now, but that future vision needs to be developed and improved.
I think the language is, that's already there states that, but I understand your concerns.
You can, the qualifying opens soon.
I'd have to move.
Just a little
Then it
bit.
won't qualify. It's just, I think it's there. I understand your point. I've made my argument, Your Honor.
You've been heard, you've been soon to be judged.
Apparently, I'm losing this argument.
Well, I think that
all right, so-
in defense of Andy,
Yeah,
we have a longer history of activity than he does in the city.
That's true.
So from my perspective, it needs to be there. Or it helps, and maybe it helps. I don't think it'll cure anything, but maybe it'll help.
we have all, I think we're all on the side of minimizing the language in the charter. I think we believe that. We've made a lot of decisions based on that. But we've also removed things from the charter that in the past were issues, but were then added to the charter to make sure they were acted on. And once they became acted on and they were policy and we saw it happening, we have taken out sections that represented that, correct? This one, I think, for now, it makes sense to keep in because we have seen the issues. In the next charter, I mean, if we're seeing things that are, if the planning's being done appropriately, going forward the next 5 years, it can come right back out. But I think there's a very qualified concern with regards to how future improvements are identified, how they're measured, how they're assessed and tracked. I mean, something breaks, yeah, we fix it. That's not a future capital improvement. That's a maintenance issue. And I think we see a lot of unpaid maintenance that become, in someone's mind, a future improvement But that's not what that is.
But there is a future plan that's adopted by the commission. Your Honor, I have another argument. There is a future plan that's adopted, and it's an ongoing plan that occurs, and it's supposed to be 5 years out. Yes, I understand you're saying that those things aren't being acted on. I got it. But there is an adopted plan.
Okay. Well,
I think this isn't the Supreme Court or anything, but the rebuttal to that would be, I'll stipulate that they have a plan. But I'll
do we
also,
want to go
I
ahead and
also
add
say
this
that they
plan
don't.
to
They
the
also,
other
but
list?
listen, they also, well, he's saying they have a plan. I think what we're saying is it's not prioritized. And this
Okay.
says prioritize it.
Here's, we're already changing section L, no, K or L. Let me go back. Sorry, I don't mean to go back, but I'm going back. Under K under section 8.
Right.
We talked about review, update, retire, abandon, and deem completed all city master and action plans every 5 years.
Right.
We can add a prioritized future capital improvement plan to that list and meet the intent of this paragraph G.
And honestly, what you're saying, I think, has more weight to what you're trying to do. If you're having the city commission prioritize it versus the city manager. But I understand what John's going to say, which is that this is, it should be looked at and planned based on the person who's responsible for the budget and those things in the future.
The
It
Board of
should be
Commissioners-
looked at and planned by the person who is there 365 days
True.
a year and runs the ship.
Well, it's a basic thing
He
of this. The Board of
knows.
Commissioners does policy, the city manager does administrative. The city commission probably doesn't know what the capital improvement programs should be because there's stormwater, there's expansion of the treatment plant, there's closing the landfill, there's, the seawall at the docks is falling in. I mean, those are administrative matters. And that's why it's under the city manager versus Carrie moving it back to the commission. It's
Okay, so
The city, excuse me, please. The city manager should tell this board at a budget session
right.
that we have to fix the drainage at the sponge docks. It's going to cost us $18.5 million. I put that in the budget. And then it gets done. Without the prioritizing these things, the board's going to change it every damn time somebody calls them and says, oh, I got this big hole in my street. Can't you come and fix it?
okay, so I got 2 here. Are we keeping it?
I know.
I would say keep it. I think there's been some very good arguments for keeping it under the
Joan?
aegis of the city
Keep it.
manager.
All right, we're keeping it. Move on.
Okay,
Paragraph 3.
3, they do not want an assistant city manager required in the charter.
Oh, really?
There's 5 of them up there already. What are we
I think that one
kidding?
was pretty clear.
The
Not only no, but hell no. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think they were pretty strong on this one.
Even stronger than that. Okay.
you
Yeah,
know,
can you tell me just briefly why?
It's not needed. We have people that we put in those positions. You're adding an additional, pretty extensive expense to the city by doing that. We've never had a problem with this before. This is one that doesn't need to be fixed.
but the town,
We,
just because something never happened in the past doesn't mean.
okay, we just had a disaster and we didn't have a problem how it was maintained. I mean,
Where
really,
I see the-
what
where I
bigger
see-
decision
where-
is there than the disaster we just
Where I
had?
see the deficiencies
Yeah,
are
we had 2.
in
We had a,
day-to-day maintenance,
we actually had
day-to-day
2 city
operations is
managers.
where I see the deficiencies.
right?
But we have department heads that do that. There, you may not agree with how that's being done, but that doesn't mean we need another layer of administration. It just means that the city manager needs to put that as a priority of getting that being done. That, it's a difference.
Difference from the president of the US and the vice president, right? No.
The vice president
No
doesn't do
difference
anything.
at all.
The vice president never does anything.
Okay, so here, when we discussed this, one of our concerns was, we're a growing city.
Right.
Yes, we are.
We're growing in terms of footprint. We're growing in terms of collaboration with other municipal areas. The city manager job, as it was done in the past, is not necessarily going to be done that way by the new person that's in. And
Then
from
why
my
not
pers-
I'm sorry, why not let, if that's the occurrence, why not let the Board of Commissioners and the city manager, if that situation is needed, do that as opposed to mandating it?
and that's where I was going to come from.
Right.
I was going to suggest if there's a way to allow assistant city manager.
They're allowed.
You can do it now.
They can do it.
No, I'm fine. I just think that, you know, if the city manager has a need and he identifies it, I think we were all in agreement of being supported with that. We didn't want to preclude it happening by not having it in the charter. Follow
No,
me?
they can do it, but you're mandating it, and that, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Right now, based on what just happened, we have financial issues.
Yes.
And adding a requirement at this point is probably not necessary.
Right. And I have to agree with that. I think we've got a lot of expenses coming.
Well, I
And
can-
if they are, if he's able to suggest and persuade and budget, et cetera,
Absolutely.
for that,
And again, when you talk about budget and priority,
Mm-hmm.
if the city manager needs an assistant city manager, he's going to budget and prioritizing and give the reasons why he needs it, as opposed to you mandating it at a
Okay.
time where maybe, frankly, we can't afford to do it.
I
So-
agree.
I move to
John.
take it out.
Take it out.
I
Second.
mean,
I'm
I still
polling.
think we were
Take it
valid
out?
in our.
Take it
All
out.
right. Can I have a motion to remove this paragraph?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Who seconded it? You did? No. Do we have a
I
second
will
for that?
second it.
It's fine.
All right.
I have-
Any further discussion?
What, Michelle?
No,
All
I
right,
had Mr.
let's-
Terrapini make
we-
the motion, Ms. Jennings second.
The other
Yeah.
way around.
Okay,
I'm sorry?
I heard wrong.
I'm,
No, you
I
heard
made
right.
the
It
motion
just
and he
gets spun out.
seconded.
To remove the paragraph.
Yes.
I
Okay,
just want to say one thing.
yes.
Our thinking and our premise was correct. I'm willing to go along with changing it just because of the financial condition of the city. But I think the discussion of why we put it in was because of the condition of the city and that maybe there needed to be the city manager focusing on big picture things. And that the day that the city, assistant city manager would be running the
Day-to-day.
operations, clean, getting things done that haven't been done, deferred maintenance stuff. To provide some additional assistance to the city manager. But anyway,
I agree. We need our city manager to be more forward thinking. I think we
so
all agree with
I
that.
think our thinking was right, but I think things, we've had some issues, disaster issues, so, okay, we take it out.
And from my perspective, if they put an assistant city manager in at some point, at that point, he's not a charter official. That's really the only difference between having this here.
That's
That's
true.
correct.
That's true.
Okay. All right, so, Michelle, would you please call the vote on this?
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Chair Colianis?
Yes.
Chair Whit?
Yes.
So based on the motion you just made, if we go to section 20, the board is fine with your language, just removing assistant city manager from the language you proposed.
Okay.
Makes sense.
That's one. That's not a problem. The second one, as you're probably aware if you watched the meeting, had a lot of debate, which we
Right.
had debate here on, which was the same. I mean, I think it's pretty simple. The point is that if you're requiring all department heads and directors who are not listed above to be within 10 miles of the Tarpon Springs City Hall, we are going to lose out on potential candidates. That requirement was discussed here in depth and was discussed by the BOC with the same comment, was mentioned by the prior city manager as also an issue. So they're trying to give you what they see as the reality of candidates and that things have changed in coming in and out. But if you've got the priority of the city manager, fire chief, police chief, within the city limits, that they don't see the need for these others.
Well,
That's the point, and I know you've discussed it already.
I'm going to make a comment, and what I heard in their discussion was that they wanted to retain the list from before and not expand it. The concern was that all department heads and directors is too extensive.
It is.
But they were okay with maintaining that requirement for city clerk, administrative services director, public services director, development services director, and planning and zoning director.
Which would leave the language in there and just strike what you've added.
Well, we changed.
No.
We changed the.
No.
I'm sorry.
The 10 miles is new.
You're right, the 10 miles is new.
So the arguments that so this is like a moving, you come up with one argument, they make another different argument. The original argument was that these people couldn't find affordable housing within Tarpon because Tarpon had gotten to be so expensive. And so we talked about a couple miles, they made their thing on a little further. So we came up with 10 miles. Think where 10 miles is. I mean, 10 miles is like almost a 52, and 10 miles going east is out into Zephyr Hills. And so it's,
Well,
I think there needs to be some cohesion to I don't know.
would you be okay with the other names that are in there within the 10 miles as opposed to all department heads and directors?
They seem to be in agreement with keeping those other titles. And then the issue was, well, what are the titles now?
They changed the titles. They changed the titles.
I know, then that was why we went with all department heads and directors.
Which is very broad, and that caused some angst, I think.
Yeah, well, it's because the titles change.
James?
So do we put in? So, if you're at that level, well, does that really mean that all of them have to be there? I mean, I can see that there, might be exceptions to that rule. So do we?
It's a hard
Do we
section
adapt,
to
do we
write.
adapt the language that says, instead of all departments heads, maybe we can say that employees who provide the functions of city clerk, administrative services director, public services director, development services director, and planning and zoning director, where we're not calling them out by name, but we're calling them out by the services they provide. So if names change, it doesn't matter. They're still required to meet the resident requirement.
Listen, at one time.
Do you follow me?
Give you some background. At one time, the original residency requirement said the department heads had to live within the city, right? So what do? They changed the title of the department heads to directors.
Right.
They're
Well,
no longer required
and
to live
that's
in the
why
city.
Instead of having,
It's a semantics game.
right, but if you say if the individual's providing that service, then they can have any title they want. They still have to meet this requirement.
That does cover
Jimmy's got
that
more
issue.
experience in this than me, so, and he was involved in it, so I'll defer to his.
Jim, you want to weigh in on this? Or Duck? There's room under here. There's lots of room under here.
I'm trying to get used to living at home again right now. Listen,
Well, there's less
think
houses
it's a-
now available. That's the point.
yeah, I think that it's very important that the people who work here live here. And I know it's hard to say, I mean, I agree with John, 10 miles is a long way, any way you look at it. If somebody can't buy a house in a 10-mile radius of Tarpon Springs, we hired the wrong person.
And that was the original argument, that for the housing cost in Tarpon Springs. So we're saying 10 miles out and you still can't do it? I don't buy that.
Well, you're saying 10 miles to City Hall also.
Well,
And the only point I would say there is that 10 miles from the city limits are a little more Not a lot more, but a little more.
Didn't we raise the issue of defining
Well,
the
that's
city?
why
limits?
it was at 10
we
miles.
did.
Yeah, and there, that's defined in the prior paragraph. And I mean, I could see city limits adopted instead of city hall. We were really targeting city hall or the emergency center,
Right.
the SC, when, you know, for the emergency responders.
If we do this,
You might as well not do it at all.
well, I understand both ways, because when we put this up the last time, there's a lot of places who are now in the city limits
Right.
that weren't before and are going to be affected by it. Or is it 10 miles from there, or is,
The,
the answer is 10 miles. I mean, we agreed upon City Hall because you have to have a stable place to stay. To anybody who comes in here that applies for a job, you have to live within this area.
but then again, is it as the crow flies or is the
That's the
car
whole,
drives?
that's
You
the
do a
whole
circle.
problem with
Yeah,
it.
it's a circle. It's as the
Yeah.
crow flies. So it's actually bigger than
It is
what you would
bigger than
think.
that.
Yeah.
But the point made is wouldn't have a problem with city limits. I mean, you get a few more miles that way. And the point is that the emergency people are here when they need to be.
Well,
And
we're
then
not
the
talk-
question is will the city employees participate in the city activities? And that's, I think,
That cuts both ways.
yeah.
Because I will be honest with you, there's a lot of people that are not going to come into certain city restaurants
Yeah,
because you can't be seen necessarily.
patronizing one
Right.
over the other. Yeah,
That's a true issue.
yeah.
Whether you want to believe it or not, I've seen it so many times because people, hey, look at Joe Blow's over at whatever bar again, you know? I mean, it's just a true statement that occurs, but I mean, I'd throw that out for your consideration.
Well, look at it this way. Look at how much we expanded it with this language.
Yeah,
Why not try it for 5 years? And if it
Right.
didn't work? But honestly, if you'll remember, the original objection was that people couldn't find housing in Tarpon Springs. And we said, what about a couple miles? No, that's still not enough. We said, okay, 10 miles. And now it's changing to something else. Now you're not going to get qualified people. So we go from an economic thing of finding housing to finding people.
but, okay, I'm gonna take us back to our discussion. The argument, the reason we went with all department heads and directors is because we weren't getting, we were concerned about the titles and titles change.
Right.
When they had the discussion, they were okay that, that these other director levels were included in requiring to be close. There was a problem with that core versus all.
Right. That
And-
makes it much more, and that's why that argument now exists, John.
Right, so we
qualified
would get concurrence from the Board of Commissioners if we continued with this, and I think we were fine with this. Our only issue was titles.
Right.
And not knowing what the titles is,
What
and it
John
was
said,
easier
right.
for us to say all than to try to call that out. So I'm gonna ask the city attorney for the language that we should use for that.
I actually like your language.
You like all.
No, your language.
My language, saying that the people who provide these
It's not
services,
it's not
these
broad.
functions,
What you said so far is not broad enough for me.
what's that?
I said, what you said so far, the list you came up with so far, I don't think is broad enough.
Okay, what would you add to that?
All.
Well,
Time for a break.
Sorry.
Under the
I
desk.
would say-
no,
I'll
no,
go
it's
back-
okay.
I'll
So-
go back to that, we've expanded it so much. Let's try it.
All right.
We've expanded it 10 miles from 0 miles.
Okay, and then I want to say one other thing. I see they want us to take out assistant city manager. That's actually in the original language. I would say leave it. Because if there is ever a assistant city manager brought in,
Good
we
point.
want them to adhere to this. So I would say stut that.
okay.
Good point. So we leave 20.
You like that point?
So,
Yeah. All right.
so
So,
So is everybody, so that's the question. Do you want to leave 20 as you've proposed it?
Yeah, I do. And try it, because
Really down
we've
here.
expanded it so much.
Eh,
Remember,
I
it
get-
doesn't
I get-
affect anybody, it doesn't affect anybody who's currently in position.
I know, but it
No,
doesn't.
but we're going to have people
But yes,
retiring.
it does.
The last-
Oh, no, because
No,
if,
Right.
yes, you're right.
But
you're
within
right.
the next 5 years, we're going to have people retire.
Right.
Yes, I would just as soon be more specific about the people at this point, rather than put all.
Are you comfortable with using functions as
Yes.
opposed to titles?
Mhm.
Joan, where are you?
I like the idea of putting functions, but I think all works for me too. I don't think it,
You want all?
yeah.
Okay. Jim, I'm surveying.
I don't know how we do all without a specific. I don't think this is a problem. I totally disagree that this is a problem because we have people who have worked here that I know have moved houses and didn't come in. Okay? That's not what the 10-mile marker is or the utilizing the name, you know? How do we get people want to live in Tarpon Springs? Well, some don't. It's because they have kids who want to go to a better school or they have personal problems or just 10 miles. If you can't find a place to live in within 10 miles, you went to the wrong place.
So has your son found a place within 10 miles?
My grandson's the one who
I mean, your
can't make up
your
his
your
mind. Yeah, well,
grandson?
he's found a bunch of them, but his grandpa won't give him enough money for a down payment.
Okay.
That's
Smart
not,
grandpa.
that's not true because he's got more bucks than I do.
Well,
but-
may I elaborate a little?
Yes.
You know, as a parent, it is a big deal. If you've got a kid already in school, let's say in high school, and it's more than 10 miles away, to pull your kid out, you know, of that, it's a big deal for a family. And you would lose candidates who have those kind of family situations, which may be most of the people.
I say try it for 5 years. If it doesn't work, the next group can change it.
I'm fine with passing the buck.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
I'm fine with passing the buck. Try it for 5 years.
And-
You know, the thing is that, like what Tina said, we can always come up with, that one case where somebody doesn't want to move their kids out of a high school. I get that. But,
Okay,
if
so
somebody's in the job market on that level, they're going to consider,
Okay.
uprooting and moving.
we have a sentence in here that says the Board of Commissioners may temporarily excuse the residency requirement for such time periods, no one time period exceed 1 year, as it deems appropriate in the best interest in the city. If we re-include that, then, I think the intention is met without having to require somebody to yank their kid out of school.
I can go along with that, Carrie.
You can go along with that?
Yeah. That would cover all the,
I think that would cover the problem.
yeah.
Good with me. That's good.
So we would need a motion on that.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion that would keep assistant city manager in the first paragraph.
You don't need to do that.
I don't need to do that, okay.
Because we're not
I would
changing it, right?
entertain a motion that would add to the residency paragraph the existing last sentence of the current residency paragraph that says the Board of Commissioners may temporarily excuse the residency requirement for such time periods, no one time period to exceed 1 year, as deems appropriate in the best interest of the city.
So moved.
Second.
Good save,
Michelle, would you call the vote?
Carrie.
What?
I said, good save. Good save.
I'm going to vote no.
You're voting no?
Wait a minute, we do have to have a quorum for this.
We
Have to
have
have a
we have
majority of those
five,
people
so
that
we
are
only
here.
need 4. So,
Okay,
Michelle, would you call the vote?
Dr. Bucavalis?
no.
Ms. Jennings,
Yes.
Mr. Terrapini,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colianis,
Yes.
Chair Root.
Yes.
Okay. Section 23, Board of Commissioners is okay with the changes that you made up to, where are we? That's right, yes, yes.
Section 23.
Up to section 10 on the, okay, that's 26. Okay, yeah, we're good on 23. Now we go to 26. Okay,
Where are we at?
you're 23, you're good. It says section 10 on the top, but that's section 26.
Okay,
So this
They-
is the sidewalk improvement fund.
okay.
So
Okay.
we're missing a heading there, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Your
they didn't like
recommendation,
that.
the BOC said this is already a policy and priority done through a rating system, which is already adopted by the city. So the sentence of the city shall adopt a sidewalk improvement plan, it's already done.
What we've seen
It's not
was.
the, yeah.
that-
I
yeah,
know what you're gonna
it's like,
say.
okay, here's some sidewalks. How much have we got money for? We'll do these. That's not that. is
Well,
not
let's
what
talk
our
about,
intent
okay,
was.
let's talk about the fact that the last part of your addition is, the BOC is fine with. The city shall appropriate a minimum of 300,000 per year to be expended on sidewalk improvement during the year the funds are budgeted. They're okay with that. So the amount withdrawn does not exceed 300,000 per fiscal year. So that language is fine. Really, the language that you're putting in here is the city shall adopt a sidewalk improvement plan, which they already have a policy and priority. So that's the language that we're talking about that they don't agree with.
Yeah, the issue is that,
But we're
I
do-
mean, they prioritize some sidewalks. They do not have a comprehensive plan. We had many people come and say, you know, round Spring Bayou, it's a mess, here it's a mess, there it's a mess, and it was not on any plan that we
But
saw
remember,
come in.
this is, you can't look at it independently. This was tied to the discussion of divesting the fund.
Right.
The sidewalk
Yes.
improvement fund. So that's what said, okay, we'll give you the money, but by the time the money runs out, you gotta have a new solid plan.
Right, they need to have a plan going forward, so then it can be budgeted and executed, because this money's likely gonna be gone by
And
then.
you probably recall my discussion on this before. If you don't,
Remind
it's
me,
a responsible we have liability if we don't do this.
yeah, no, well,
right?
they're not
Well,
doing
that
it,
never
it
bothered
doesn't
them in the
matter.
past.
Have
Well,
you seen the
there-
condition of some of the
there's-
sidewalks? Or the steps?
Okay, so,
or the-
so here's how I would say this to you. Sidewalks, for the most part, are always a problem for every municipality. Because the ones that are a major issue have to be repaired, right? Which necessarily puts you back on when you go from community to community. Because if we just said we're gonna do this section of the city, then the one that we just had an accident and is broken needs to still be done. You can't pass that one. So this is a changing function at all times for cities. The one where the tree just finally pushed through and we have a messed up sidewalk needs to be taken care of, even if we're doing that neighborhood based on the policy.
I think, okay, I just read it again. So we're talking about divesting of the sidewalk improvement fund, letting them spend all the money,
Right.
okay? What the city shall adopt a sidewalk improvement plan by 2029 is not which sidewalks we're gonna do, but what vehicle is gonna go into place, what funding is gonna go into place to replace the sidewalk improvement fund? In other words, how are they gonna,
It's a budget item, right?
yeah, how are they gonna budget it? Where's the plan? Show us the plan. You gotta have it's a budgeting item. If you wanna put that word in there, that's fine. But I think that's what it meant, right?
Yes, yeah, because they need to, I mean, with the fund gone, I mean, with how they are using it today, I'm not convinced that we have a bigger picture.
I mean, I know you guys, this is a big point for y'all. You spent a lot of time with this one. I understand. So if you want to leave it, we'll leave it.
But I just wanted to be clear, but it's not talking about saying which sidewalks to do as far as a list. It's talking about a bigger picture thing of how much, a fund, how they're gonna address it.
So I'll throw the thought out again. Do we take the sidewalk improvement plan and put it back in the other section with our major plans?
Mm.
What about
Separate.
inserting
Well,
the word
I-
funding in front of
Separate.
plan?
Yeah, I think when you talked about it, you wanted this as a separate, you're giving them time because by 2029,
Well, it depleted the fund.
the fund will be depleted, so there has to be a
And
plan
the-
in place
and
to
the next
replace the
charter-
fund.
Right,
Commission will address it at
That,
that
that
point.
was what your issue was, and then you increased amounts so that the fund would deplete.
right. And hopefully in that time, get some.
Right,
sidewalk
so
done.
this does,
Suspend
the
it.
language accomplishes what you were trying to do.
So we leave it?
I think we ought to leave the language in there,
Yeah.
because they didn't do it,
Okay,
haven't done it for how many years?
that's right. Okay,
We
we're
leave it?
leaving the language. Move on, section 30.
30 was on the maybe list. That was one, I don't think the board had a problem one way or the other if you want to do 15 and move it down to 10. I mean, I don't think that was,
I would like to leave it considering, how few, 15% is just too much. At some elections, 15% don't even vote,
Yeah.
so.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Well, that's why we changed it to 10, right?
yeah.
Right.
and then section 32, the board was fine with everything. Also the same for section 33.
And we are done with that.
So all right, so if we can move on to what's going to
Next
happen next. Okay. Did everybody get this?
No.
No. Okay, so the next steps, you've made some changes, so I will draft those up and we'll make adjustments to the final ordinance.
Do we need to
Then-
come back and vote on that, or
No.
those just go forward?
No.
Okay.
The city clerk's office and I will start drafting the questions.
Do we have to review those?
I think Irene said no, but we can if you want.
I think we would like to.
Well,
Does that have to be in a
We have to
formal
approve the
meeting, or
questions.
can we
They're
review
always been
them and
approved by the
provide
Charter
comments back?
Revision Committee.
first reading of the ordinance proposed for the charter language has to be by November 19th.
Oh, somebody better get busy and call us back.
Right, that's the ordinance,
That's the ordinance.
okay?
That's the first reading,
So then the
okay?
meeting.
Remember, the second reading can be, changes can be made after the first reading before the second reading.
Right.
That's just pro forma.
saying,
I'm
I
not
think-
worried about
I
that.
think we should see the questions.
Hold
Terry.
it. I want to suspend discussion for a minute, because I would really like our sixth board member to come take a seat and join the discussion.
Just look back.
You're late, boy, it's all over
Here.
with.
Okay, so
Hand them this thing.
here's the meetings that you wanted. We will need to set meetings to do the following. Approve the ballot questions, the flyer, and all minutes. We have some proposed dates.
Wednesday is up.
Okay, one less date. Friday, November 22nd at 10 a.m. or Monday, November 25th at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. This is again to approve the ballot questions, the flyer, and all minutes.
I think I'm good either way. Probably earlier the better.
The 22nd?
Fine for me.
I think I'm going to be out of town the 22nd.
Are you going to
gone.
be back in town on the
Yes.
25th?
Yes.
What day of the week is that on?
That's a Monday.
At what time? 10?
10,
25th?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm out of town on both of those dates.
Yeah, the difficulty for me is, would we had it at a certain date every week, it was easier for me to plan, but
We could do it at 2 also on that Monday, if that's better for you, because that's closer to the time.
that's probably better. I have to, because I don't want to, I've missed several and unfortunately it's, so
So-
go ahead and do what's most convenient and then I'll see if I can do a workaround.
Well,
on
I
my
mean, in
calendar.
working on the 25th, which is the Monday, which is when we were meeting at 2, would probably be, is everybody,
Neither of them.
Fine for
I know
me.
the chair can't make it, can everybody else make it then?
Yeah.
So why don't we shoot with that November 25th at 2?
Okay, is it possible for me to call in?
It is.
All right,
She can call in.
Why
You
not?
couldn't call in, this room is not set
Oh.
up for that.
Well, you didn't ask that. She didn't ask that.
Oh,
I said, is it possible? Yes, it's legally possible. I don't know if physically, if we can't do that.
why not?
to my understanding, that is the reason Irene couldn't call in today, because this room is not set up for.
Well, why don't we have it in a room that can be set up for that?
Either that or just call somebody's cell phone and put you on speaker.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
Call Andy's cell phone and put you on speaker. Or somebody's cell phone.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that would work for me if that would work for the city. You could even put a microphone on the phone. And a power cord on the phone. I
think
could
we can work
do
that-
Monday, the 25th, if I can do it via remote.
okay, at 2 PM.
Yeah.
Okay, just to give you after December 3rd will be the second reading of the ordinance. So after what you do on the 25th, that'll be finalized on December 3rd.
Okay.
December 17th will be a resolution calling for election and ballot language for the March 11th, 2025
Is that a
election.
meeting for us?
No, this is just telling you time periods.
Okay.
December 18th, the ballot information will go to the supervisor of elections, and the election will be March 11th.
Andy, when's the first reading of the ordinance?
The first reading is November 19th, and remember about the first reading. We have to do that so we can get it on the right time.
Right.
The first reading is a pro forma because it can be changed, which it will be, on anything you do on the
Modify it.
25th.
Okay.
So we will amend the ordinance if you make any changes on the 25th.
Okay. Do you anticipate the Board of Commissioners putting their own language in?
No one has spoken to me about doing any of their own language. I did not feel from the meeting that we had that there was any proposal for any language. Now, that being said, of course they could, but I didn't think that any of them had such a concern over what you were proposing.
Well, we did accept one of their suggestions.
A couple,
Well, you
actually.
accepted a couple of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had the opportunity, but I haven't heard anything that would
All right.
lead me to believe they would.
So
propose
our
it.
next meeting's November 25th, 2 PM. Legally, I will be able to call in. I'll need to be provided with
yes.
the information on how to do that.
Right, and the vice chair will run the meeting.
You'll run it. I'll let you run it over the phone. You can't give up. You paid-
I'm
you
happy
paid the
to do
price.
that.
No, she cannot run it over the phone.
Is that true?
That is true.
Put me on mute either.
Just like she can't make the quorum, we have to have a quorum without her.
Can we
Yeah.
take a 2-minute?
Okay, can we take a 2-minute break?
Sure.
Yes.
Irene's gonna yell at me for something.
Okay, that's a break for all of us. We will break for how about till 12 o'clock? And I don't think we've got much more to do. So
No.
we should be able to be done by 15 after or so. All right,
What's left?
take a
to do?
break till 12 o'clock.
Okay.
seats. I'm going to go ahead and continue the meeting at 11:55.
Here, I just need to make a clarification. On the language for the ordinance will be, will not be changed, but you will look at the question and the flyer to make sure those, you will make changes if you need to for those.
Okay, so, and that is what you were proposing for November 25th.
Yes,
Does that have to happen after the first reading?
yes, only because we can't do the timing. The first reading and the second reading are required within a specific period of time to be concluded in order to get it to the supervisor of elections.
Yes, but you're saying that we have to have, we have to wait until after the first reading to review that information?
Well, just from a logistics standpoint, I don't think we would have anything for you. I mean, today's,
Well, what I was going to say
today's
is
the
that
8th.
I'm available next Wednesday.
You see,
The 20th? What, you mean the 13th?
Yeah.
Irene's out till next week because she's been sick. So I will not be meeting with her until next week. Let's see where we are. And you're talking about meeting on the,
I'm available Tuesday as well. I know it's a one day to turn it around, but
well, I don't
can't
think
do the
we'll,
12th. How about the 13th?
you're,
Say yes, please.
can we check with Irene?
I'm out of town.
Oh, you're out?
Carrie, why don't we just patch you in by phone?
What's that?
We're not gonna cut you out. We'll patch you in by phone
Um,
for the language.
Well, I'm exploring the possibility.
Are you gonna be, you're gonna be gone the 14th?
Actually, let me just confirm that because I'm thinking I'm gone on the 14th. I might be here on the 14th. Let me just see. Great. Come on.
Because, oh, you guys aren't gonna be here Monday anyway, right? No, see, Monday, the city's closed.
Yeah,
So that makes it really hard.
yeah, I'm gone on the 14th.
So we stick with the plan.
The ordinance, not the questions.
Say that again?
What are we reviewing on the 13th?
We're reviewing we're actually reviewing the questions and the flyer. I would leave it the date we have. I don't think we can do it any sooner, honestly.
So the 25th at 2:00.
Yes. If you want it in good shape, everything done, that should be fine.
Okay.
And that's all you have from me.
Okay, that's the next step. Oh, so there's one other thing here. We have our list of recommendations that I don't want to fall by the wayside. So I would like to consider a date to reconvene in January. Because the last time we spoke, Irene indicated that the recommendations would need to be written up by the city attorney for the board.
Not a problem.
So do you have the current list in the summary?
I believe
It has not changed.
it hasn't changed, and I have it, and I believe Irene has it also.
All right, and if there's any question, just contact me. I have that on my computer for you.
Okay.
All right, so can we look at sometime later in January?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to now open the floor to public comments. Mayor Protos, do you have anything you'd like to add? Can you come to the microphone and make sure the green light's on so everybody can hear you?
I was
Okay.
just concerned about the employees living in the city because I'm a firm believer that we need our city employees as close to us as we can because we're at the far northern part of Pinellas County. And I know where I live, I have Clearwater policemen bringing Clearwater police cars to my neighborhood, Largo. There's a fireman that lives next to John's parents' house. And the other day I saw a St. Pete utilities maintenance director's car on West Bay Shore moving in. And I don't know what their policies are, but to me, that's too far away when you hold a position that important in the city. So I'm glad that you've got it like you have it. And it's a very important thing, because to get up here in a storm like we just had, or to get up here in a hurricane, it's very difficult with what's on the roads today.
Thank you for your
I'm glad
insight.
y'all did that.
Thank you for your insights. Okay, board and staff comments. I'm going to start with Michelle. Do you have any comments? No. Mr. Salzman, do you have any comments?
No, thank you for all your hard work.
Everyone. Okay. Mr. Terrapini, do you have any?
Just wish Irene a speedy recovery.
Mr. Kuskudis? Oh, wait a minute. We were going to take up one. I apologize.
Well, it's more of an editorial than a comment, so I don't know if this is the most
Okay.
appropriate time to
This
do
is
it or-
on the city hospital, section 33?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I wasn't here for that particular section. Otherwise, I would have been able to add a lot of insight into that. I really don't have any issues with what you proposed. The hospital foundation is just basically a shell at this point. Advent Health, and whether you left it at Advent Health or the shell, it really doesn't matter. But one of the things, when I did watch the meeting, and one of the comments was with regard to the hospital, and this is more commentary than anything, has nothing to do with this, is that there was a comment that the hospital is not safe. And I took,
Can you talk about viewing?
there was, when they were talking about,
Commission
no,
meeting?
no, it was this meeting. Okay. That the hospital was not safe. And I think it had to do with the evacuation and I don't know if it was you, Mr. Kalianis, that suggested, because they promised to replace the windows and stuff like that. And they may have done that, but they may not have done that. But one of the concerns or one of the issues that I want to bring, because words matter. And when somebody, in a public forum says the hospital is not safe, what does that mean? Does it mean it's not safe in healthcare, or is the building not safe at all? And just to understand, and maybe a lot of people in this community don't know, but the hospital's invested $20 to $30 million in a new emergency room. They had to put in a new plant that cost about $18 million for the hospital. They had to redo the entire mechanical system for the hospital at $27 or $28 million. They had to put on a new roof. They have spent this year alone between $40 and $50 million in community benefit health care. That's uncompensated health care. So when we look at the EFIS, or you look at the EFIS of replacing the EFIS of the hospital, that's another $20 million. The hospital is safe. The building is safe. Can there always be some hurricane proof? Yes, you can. You could always improve the building. But my concern was that in public comment, that somebody says the hospital is not safe, really, got to be careful with words, because words matter. And when you look, we have a quality hospital. They've invested, if you look at it, over $100 million in the infrastructure itself that benefits the city. And that's not at a cost to the city. So just that we're aware, anybody watching this, when they hear those words, that the hospital is safe. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that on the record. That's all.
Thank you very much. I was there this week for my mammogram. Mr. Koulianos, would you like to make any comment? No. This is Dr. Bukavalis. No comment? Miss
Well, again, I'd just like to send my best to Irene. I hope she feels better soon.
Yes, our best, Irene. I want to make a couple of comments. First off, this has been a great board to work with. We're not quite done yet, but we've, I think, achieved a very significant milestone today. Our work was reviewed by the Board of Commissioners, and we've responded back, and today's meeting really represents a significant milestone in our work. So thank each of you for bringing your experiences, for bringing your perspectives to here, to bear on everything we had to consider in this charter. I think we've all shown our love and dedication to this city, and I look forward to working with everyone again in whatever projects we wind up sitting at the table with each other. So thank you. Yes, Mr. Kukulis.
I have one more question, and I know we can't go back and peel back the onion, but this past storm showed us something, and what it showed us was, whether or not it's addressed in the charter or not, but give it some thought for maybe future, is, because it may be too late, is empowering your commissioners and or staff with emergency powers. For example, the Fruit Bowl area, having the, and I think the city did a good job going to resolution about trying to bypass the Historical Preservation Board to get these things more on track at a faster time as far as permitting and stuff. And I don't know if that needs to be codified in a city charter, but
State statute, isn't it?
but okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, I just want to make sure that that was addressed
Yeah,
because
we had no concerns with that. Okay, well, yeah.
yeah.
No, that's our, we have a good charter. We have a good set of elected officials. We've got very dedicated city staff and executive branch. I mean, we went through a lot.
And kudos to the city
Yes, we went
and
through
the
a
staff
lot.
of the city and the employees of the city because we were up and running a lot quicker than a lot of communities, and that's a tribute to pre-planning and what the city's already put in place. So.
I also want to say these meetings require a lot of work from the city clerk and the deputy city clerk. So I wanted to thank you very much for your dedication and time. I thank you very much, Mr. Salzman, for all your research you've brought to us, your patience as we work to understand some of these issues, and not minding getting beat up occasionally. Really appreciate your good humor and
And John
the
never
guidance.
hit me. I just want to
and
put that
John
on.
did, well, I was going to have to move positions on a couple of occasions, but I'm glad we didn't have to do that. Anyway, with that, I am going to adjourn this meeting at 12:08. Done.
I didn't know that's such a bad.
Not everybody.
Very sensitive.
The lightning strike was not all by landscape lighting.
So